welcome to our session called Connect the Dots, Increasing Inclusivity Through Training Composers. I'm Francesca Lohé and I am the project manager at Contemporary Music for All, or shortens down to CoMA. We're an organisation with over a 30-year history, and our aim is to create opportunities for people of all abilities and all ages to participate in making new music together. In 2021, CoMA conducted a survey and found that 86% of composers who completed our survey claimed that they'd never worked with a disabled musician. And when they were asked why this was, a very common answer was, "I don't know how." So we realised that these new commissions that CoMA and ensembles and commissioning bodies around the country were asking for, the music that was coming out of it wasn't necessarily going to be created with any accessibility in mind or any confidence in writing for musicians who actively said that they were disabled and so on. And it really narrows the scope of the music that comes out, and it narrows who can play it and who is listening to it as well. So CoMA wanted to develop opportunities and resources that can give composers some experience, some skills, create a space where they can ask questions about how do you make your music making, your compositions accessible? How do you work with a group of musicians who maybe need or require a different approach? So we created this course in collaboration with leading disabled musicians, including two musicians who are on our panel today, also collaborating organisations such as the National Open Youth Orchestras, BSO Resound, so it's Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra's ensemble formed of disabled musicians, disabled professional musicians, and we've also worked with local music hubs. So we're based in Tower Hamlets in East London, and we've worked with Soundbox Ensemble, which is an inclusive ensemble of disabled and non-disabled young musicians. So the reason why we're presenting today is to spread our knowledge, raise awareness of the programme, and raise awareness of the importance of talking about accessibility in composition and in contemporary music. So I'm delighted to be joined by a wonderful panel. We have two facilitators from the programme. We've got Clare Johnston, who's a music technologist, and we've got Alabaster, who is a singer and a viola player. We've also got Bofan Ma as a composer, and Natalie Roe is also a composer, and they both participated in our 2025 edition of Connect the Dots. Clare, I know you've spoken before about not necessarily liking the term accessible toilets and so on. And I just thought, it'd be nice, maybe Clare, and then if anybody wants to jump in, what does accessibility and inclusivity mean to you?
Yeah, so the thing about not liking the term accessible toilet, because I feel like it presupposes that what somebody else thinks is going to be accessible will in fact have been successful. And I've been in a large number of accessible places that definitely weren't. Your intention may have been accessibility, but the outcome did not play out like that. So that's why I don't like it as a term. So accessibility, for me, it has to be something that is very personalised, and it has to be judged by the person who is experiencing this. But the accessible music technology or accessible music doesn't mean the same thing to me, to the next person, to the next person. And it's a bit of a hiding to nothing when people, thankfully nobody did that at any of these events. There were spectacular people. But sometimes people do come to things about accessibility and hope that they're going to learn the answer. And now they're going to be able to do the accessible. And it just doesn't work like that. So accessibility for me is finding out what are the barriers that stop somebody from being able to participate in the way that they want to participate, and then overcoming those barriers for them, with them, and in the same space and same headspace that they're in.
Fantastic. Anybody else like to add anything? Feel free to jump in. Yeah, go on, Cass.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things that I always find about the term accessibility is people really often think that accessibility is adding on things. So they think it's adding grab rails, adding ramps, doing this, but actually it's more about not doing things that exclude other people. So I'm going to share my screen again just because I think there's one thing that I love doing with people, and I think it's really interesting. So I'm going back to my slides here. Okay, so my guess is that when you look at this photo, your thought isn't, why aren't they wearing suits? Where are their coattails? You think that's an orchestra. And it's things that can be as small as just using a different dress code that can increase accessibility for people. So people, instead of going, we have to add in this, we have to add in that, a lot of the time it is just making sure that you're not putting in things that really don't need to be there. So instead of, oh, we need to add ramps into this thing, you could just have a building where there's not stairs. That is really, it's a lot of the time it's only thought of as an add-on to something because it's been built on a really inaccessible structure. So yeah, I think a lot of the time accessibility is thought of as very complicated, and it's really not, because for disabled people accessibility is necessary. What people seem to forget is that for able-bodied people accessibility is really, really convenient. And it's really, really funny to me because so when I was doing stuff with the Royal Opera House, we were in one of the rehearsal rooms and they'd put a turntable in. So the rehearsal floor was about this far off the real floor. And one of the staff members was like, oh my God, we're going to need to put a ramp in. We forgot to say, can you put a ramp in? So they had the people who were building the kind of rehearsal room stuff put in a ramp. And all of the bassists and percussion players were like, this is so convenient. I love this. And it's always funny because if you frame it as convenience for able-bodied people, it's great. And then if you say, what if we had a ramp here for accessibility reasons? They go, access, that's really scary. So I think, yeah, accessibility is a lot less complicated than people sometimes make it out to be.
So Bofan and Natalie, did you come away with a different idea of what accessibility meant to you from the course? Did it become simplified, or was it different in any way?
Realization that is not a kind of hard-coded solution to any problems. It's just a kind of mindset where we have to learn to be more adaptive and to be more able to listen for people's different needs. And it's more about communication for me, I think.
I mean, for sure, communication, I think, was a big thing I also took from it. But also to make it's exactly what Claire said about the personal, individual experience. Because you can't be inclusive to all, was something that one of the participants said. And actually, when you start to learn, and what we learned on the course from different people, being visually impaired, how one person who's visually impaired deals with learning music is very different to the next. So that was super interesting. And and how preparation is so key in this, and how you could, for some people, you need to listen to the music because they can't read a Braille score, for example, whereas for others, they rely on a Braille score. So I think a combination of what everyone said, obviously, but definitely that individual touch, but also the communication of that was, for me, definitely the biggest takeaway.
Brilliant. So I guess, yeah, this personalised approach has come up quite a lot. And I was wondering, so my next question is, what do you think are the main challenges improving access to music? I guess one challenge is needing to have more personalised approaches because it's resource intensive, and you need the motivation and the resources from whoever is providing whatever musical opportunity, whether that is writing a score and sending it out and it being able to be accessible in different formats and so on, to whether it is booking a venue for a rehearsal. And so there's so many things there, from logistics to creativity to think about. Also what you were mentioning, Cass, about people's approach, a fear of making something accessible. But I wonder if are there any other main challenges you think there are to improving access, and is there anything you can think of that might come up in the future that we perhaps need to be aware of as well? I'd kick off.
Yeah, I think what I was saying before about kind of how a lot of, especially things like classical music, are very deeply ingrained in quite traditionalist views. It also goes down into the logistics so much, because if you go into youth orchestras, a lot of them are building rapport with a school where they can use their facilities. So then if you say, actually, we kind of need to ditch you because we want somewhere that's got level access, you don't have that rapport with the place, and it's a lot of changes. So if your organization is built on some kind of inaccessible structure, the first issue is realizing in what way it's inaccessible. And then the second is trying to find some way to get around that without losing the kind of rapport that you've built with your existing structures. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the things that has been quite a big difficulty when I've been trying to talk to people about it.
I would also just add, I think definitely right now it feels more than ever, but financially, just funding and the amount of projects which is taking place, and I think that's obviously a massive burden on every project. And I would love for so many more people to do this Connect the Dots course, because it was just phenomenal. But there's always limitations, I guess, financially as well. So I know it's a bit of a maybe an obvious or slightly harder one to talk about, but for sure I think financial at the moment.
It's a very real consideration. And who does that financial burden fall on? Is it falling on your participants? Is it falling on an organisation? Probably a bit of both. Yeah, Claire.
The financial thing actually feeds quite strongly into the other point I was going to make, where if I am involved in a project, I'm saying, that involves me and a personal assistant, and it involves completely different transport needs from other people, and I'm going to have to stay overnight, even though for somebody else's point of view, it's quite a small amount of travel involved, but for me, that's far too much, kind of thing. And so when you stack that up and you scale it to a larger project that involves a lot of people with accessibility needs, you're then presenting that and saying, we're going to deliver 8 hours worth of material and it's going to cost hundreds of pounds. People start to be, they want to take stuff out of it and go, well, couldn't you just, and could you maybe this one time, and it just removes all of the accessibility one step at a time, like a Kablank game. And at one point you reach that critical mass and it's not possible anymore. And some of that is sort of an attitudinal barrier as well, that if stuff is not hard enough and torturous enough, that people tend to start thinking that it must have less value, or that we're quite fixed in this idea of music becoming better and more developed over a sort of a career development, or as somebody goes through the graded exams, that there's more notes on the page and that's what makes it harder, and it's faster and that's what makes it more good. And actually the things that make the music better are the musical delivery. It doesn't have to be more notes, it just has to be done really well. And you do get this sort of, but if we make it easier, it cannot have the same value.
Very interesting. So I think it's obviously valuable to have opportunities for people to talk about their practice, share their practice. And Bofan, you mentioned that there's not much information out there. I mean, because we've also talked about the personalized approach, there's no little handbook that says how to make your music accessible. So doing the Connect the Dots program, do you feel like there is a need for it? And what has anything come from it that's impacted your practice going forwards? So that's facilitators and participants. So yeah, is there a need, and what impact has it made on you? Go on, Cass.
I think as one, like a disabled, especially a disabled young musician. So I was, I think 16, 17 when I joined Noyo, and I'd been in some quite high level ensembles before that, but then I suddenly became quite ill and I couldn't do what I was doing before. I think one of the really good things about Connect the Dots is that it gave me the opportunity to say to people, especially people who want to know, this is the kind of problems that we face, and these are the things that everyone will tell you to think, but you don't need to think it at all. So I think it was really good, because we got to kind of tell other people and teach other people about how different disabled people, but it was also so important to be able to have that come from the people who are actually impacted by it. So I think as someone who is kind of right in the middle of trying to navigate higher music while having quite significant access needs, it was really good, because I very rarely see people in my position actually being able to talk about stuff. And it's always asking people who run orchestras about how their participants think. And it's just really weird, because you could ask the participants yourself. And I think Connect the Dots was fantastic, because it did ask the people who are affected and gave them a voice to speak to other people who have the possibility to change that in the future, because the participants of Connect the Dots are the next generation of composers and facilitators.
Yeah, it was absolutely, and I found it absolutely fascinating to see all the technology being there to help music making, and to make music making more accessible for people with special needs. And I really enjoyed the interactive elements of the program, where we were given the opportunity to try out different digital instruments and softwares and iPad, which, and the softwares and the instruments are actually very hard to play. And it was really fascinating to hear that there's a NOYO and the ABRSM partnership going on, with the Clarion being officially admitted to the grading system, and that's something we need. That's definitely something we need, and we need to find new ways of looking at the term virtuosity and music terminologies and just how we describe things. And also found the sessions with Kate and also chats with Adrian over the program very fascinating as well, just to hear that there are so many different barriers for that's not very apparent to us who are not with a visual impairment. And it's also interesting to hear that there are some technologies very helpful to them, but not what I consider to be most useful in my practice. For example, like I think they mentioned the playback devices or playback systems where there's a speed shift without altering the pitch, so that they can learn their music. They can slow down the recording while learning it, which is it's not something I would have thought about. So thank you for that.
There was also a little shout out to our 2024 cohort. It was somebody who took part and then has written for Clarion as part of the ABRSM scheme that trains up new composers. And she said that when she got on the scheme, she wanted to do the option to write for NOYO and to write for Clarion, because she felt that she had the knowledge and some skills and some experience and some confidence from Connect the Dots. Like I said at the beginning, a lot of composers cite a lack of confidence and kind of a fear of working with a disabled ensemble or for a specifically accessible instrument. But also you made a comment there which I think ties into what Kate was saying. There are some things that aren't necessarily useful for you. Maybe being able to slow something down so you can listen to it isn't that useful to you now. But the thing is, what if your eyesight deteriorated? And what if your eyesight deteriorated to a point that makes reading music very difficult, but you don't identify as disabled? Which is something Kate was talking about. There will be so many musicians out there facing barriers that evolve, but not wanting to communicate them. So I hope that the learning is not only applied to, I'm working with an inclusive ensemble, but it can actually be applied to working with any ensemble, writing any music. Natalie, Claire, do you want to add anything?
That was what I was, when, how I was saying about how accessibility is really convenient. It's exactly the same thing. And I think it's also quite funny because a lot of my disabled friends call people who are able-bodied pre-disabled. And I think that's also one of the things that's quite fun about accessible composition being convenient. Yes.
Pre-disabled.
I think kind of also leading nicely on from this, for me, it was just like 4 days or however long it was of being creative in a new way that I haven't been creative before. I hadn't ever used a clarion. I haven't ever used the instrument before, but because I am also with my passion for technology, it was like great. Well, and I don't see it as something an instrument that I'm only going to use with an ensemble of disabled musicians. It's like, actually, I want to bring this into my practice because I think it's great myself, and I think it produces such brilliant music, but also so that I can go into a room with people who may have never seen what these or never seen these instruments or what they do, and be like, yeah, isn't this cool? Add this to the tech list or whatever, and get it known. Do you know what I mean? I think it was just fantastic to have the structure of learning about an instrument or a particular way of conveying music, and then having that time to just have a play with people who also didn't, the participants also maybe had never have seen these instruments before, but we just had a go. And the sessions, particularly the sessions where we went off in little groups, had some time in the instrument and then shared it at the end, was just really great. So leading back to what you were saying, I think absolutely there needs to be more of these sorts of courses or interactive days, because it's great. It's so great. It's so valuable.
I think it's also quite odd when you think about it, that the technology isn't being seen more than it is, because if you think about the number of people who have maybe a violin in their house compared to the number of people who have an iPad in their house, and yet everyone knows what a violin is. And whenever I have to try and explain to somebody, I say I'm a musician, and they say, "What do you play?" And I think, here we go. It shouldn't need so much explanation. It shouldn't be that when people come to performances, I get asked strange questions like, "How much of that were you playing?" Like, all of it. I don't understand why, when there is so much of this technology already in people's homes, why are we talking about it so little in general?
Yeah, absolutely. And in schools as well, like how many schools actually still anymore like have 30 violins lying around? But actually quite a lot of them do have 30 iPads. So you could have a thumb jam ensemble, so yeah, it's a very good point. Or a clarion ensemble, I think, because so.
And that also links quite nicely with what we were saying about the financial side of things. If a child already owns a iPad, they could go home and start making music instantly, rather than having to ask, "Oh, I really want to play the violin," and then not pursue it, or it's not being the right instrument for them or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. So,
or only getting 20 minutes with the violin a week because they don't own it or can't take it home, but they've actually got 3 devices at home or something. So no, absolutely. Excellent. And so I guess connect the dots going forward. We've only had 2 iterations so far. We plan to do more, and we tried to extend the second iteration as well by getting some extra funding to develop opportunities for commissions as well, for some composers to work with some of the groups we work with. And we have got a partnership burgeoning with the Clarion Trio, who formed out of Noyo. They are a trio of clarion, French horn and piano, and obviously they don't have a lot of repertoire, so it's the perfect opportunity, we think, to partner with them and hopefully commission a few Connect the Dots composers to write for them. But other than that, can you think of anything, what could develop Connect the Dots further? Like what do you think is maybe the next step? Or do we just need to do more of it?
I think having more kind of hands-on experience with different types of instruments could be really interesting, because I think we had a few clarions when I was doing the workshop, but it could have been really fun to have a full clarion ensemble, because we did that one of the evenings in the Noyo residential, and that was absolutely fabulous. And I think it might be interesting to see if that could be doable.
Absolutely.
I think one of the brilliant parts of the course actually is that you get to see a variety of different instruments and meet a variety of different facilitators. So I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here. But I do think we could have dived. I would also have loved more time in each session, if that makes sense. So I know that's super tricky because I want more, but also I like the balance, and the length of the days, everything about the structure of it was really nice, having the start and end times when they were. Not helpful, but each session could also have, they were so enriching and could have just carried on.
No, it makes sense. Like, they could be courses in their own. It's almost like an introduction to a lot of things. And if you wanted to go on and really explore the instrument more, that is something that we can't facilitate yet. But then maybe we can develop more partnerships. Specifically, like if a composer is specifically interested, perhaps they can meet up with the instrument player and do more sessions, and maybe inspiring confidence for our members to pursue the thing that really interests them as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Claire, you've done it twice now. What any thoughts?
My brain is away on a little bit of a tangent.
Oh yeah,
really, because it's having technology that has a lifespan, that it's properly embedded and supported for a period of time, is so important in the accessibility space. We do get a lot of people who come in and briefly reinvent the wheel and then drop out of the support market. And the experience often for particularly children in special schools is that somebody will come in with some amazing stuff and introduce it to them for 6 weeks and then take it all away again to the next school. And there is understanding that we mustn't be that in our own space either, that we're introducing these fascinating things. But yeah, we do need a longevity of what will we now do next that enables this to be more embedded for some of our composers to go away and just keep a dialogue with somebody as to a project that they're going to work on, or something that just gives it an ongoing life. So it's fantastic to see people back here today talking about the impact of doing this. This is great.
Thank you so much, everyone.
That's all right.
You've been wonderful, and let's catch up again soon.